Hey, have you ever wanted to have multiple jobs, do multiple jobs at the same time? That's called ethical job stacking. I mean, it's not illegal. So today we are with Delaney Maguire, and we are talking about job stacking and AI. We're talking about how you can do multiple jobs and at the same time how you can roll into entrepreneurship at the same time. Afterwards, how we are learning how you can apply for how to apply for jobs, what's essential, how to craft your resume. So this episode is all about jobs today. So I hope you will enjoy, because Delaney has been helping high performers double or even triple their income through ethical job stacking and AI leverage, because he has an experience. He's a former product manager who went from making $80K a year, $80,000 a year, to 390K, 390,000. Why do I keep on mentioning the numbers furthermore? But by secretly just stacking remote jobs, and then he walked away from that to build his own 7-figure coaching business that helps others do the same. And he's now generating almost 100,000 a month through Scale Your Salary. And Delaney is just the only coach teaching how to ethically job stack and use AI and automation to multiply your income without burning out and starting a business or even sacrificing your peace. So let's get into it. Yep. It's nice to have you on the podcast, man. It's nice to meet you, Delaney. Did I pronounce the name right?
Yeah, Delaney. Close enough.
Oh, Delaney Maguire. Yeah. So you're into job stacking and AI, right? And you've helped many people double or triple their income. So for me, who is a newcomer, a young person who does not understand what is ethical job stacking, could you remove my, how do they say, my ignorance, and make my mind sharp a little bit about the ethical job stacking? How is it in practice?
Absolutely. And just for anyone, because people might be a little confused, so my official name is Delaney Maguire. When I went the job stacking route, I started using Delaney William, my middle name, on social media. So if you guys are like, I thought it was Delaney Williams, Delaney Maguire, what is it? That's why. Full name, Delaney William Maguire. But yeah, great question. So ethical job stacking is a really exciting phenomenon, in my opinion. So a little bit of background on myself and how I got here. I graduated with a degree in marketing and IT. I found myself in a very traditional corporate setting, big healthcare company, nothing innovative and exciting, just kind of run-of-the-mill corporate career. I did that for several years, and I was really trying to be innovative, and I had a lot of passion, but it wasn't really rewarded in the corporate environment. And I realized, okay, the guy who sits in the corner and does nothing is rewarded the same for me when I'm trying really hard. So I'll go do some other things. And I started doing some entrepreneurial ventures, some podcasting, some personal brand based businesses. But I got a little burnt out. And the aha moment for me that has led to everything we're doing now with Elevated Tech is this curiosity of, okay, the world is heavily remote now. We have cool technologies like AI. You have the ability to hire people in other countries where you can pay them what seems like a low amount of money, but for them, it's a lot of money just because of, currency exchange rates and whatnot. So that opened a lot of doors for me, in which my goal was, let's see if I can work 2 or 3 remote jobs, earn $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 per year, which is like really exciting, life-changing money for most people, without burning myself out. Because I had burnt myself out doing all the entrepreneurial things I was doing. I was like, I think this, it doesn't feel that hard. Like especially if you tried entrepreneurial things, the corporate environment seems pretty easy because it's usually pretty slow moving. And it can have really great life balance. So I was curious if I could blend the two things, life balance and large income, by creating systems. So it's like, get the work done, but not having to really sell your soul to do it. So to answer your question, what is ethical job stacking? And not everyone will agree with this. I will fully acknowledge that it's blurred lines and it's a gray area, right? There's not, at least in the United States, it's not illegal to work multiple jobs, but most employers are not going to be happy to find out that you're working multiple jobs. My counter perspective to that is, you could be a loyal employee for 5 years and do everything in your power to be the best employee ever. But if they have a bad profitability quarter, like is happening in the US right now. Stock market drops 20% in a few days. So many people are going to be laid off. And if you don't have a safety net and a backup plan, where does that put you with you and your family, right? So for me, I want to empower the individuals to change the power dynamic and just ask the question, is it possible for me to have 2 or 3 sources of income, deliver the results? Like if a company is paying me $100,000 per year, can I generate at least $200,000 a year of value, right? It's not about 40 hours a week. It's about, is this company getting an ROI on their investment with me? And for me, that's how you thread the needle of ethical job stacking. It's removing your time from the equation and say, what is the outcome I'm delivering? Is there a way I can create that outcome with less time? So for me, my first job, I was earning $80,000 per year as a product manager. So product management is essentially a part of software building. You're basically the CEO of a little product or a piece of a product. You could like Gmail, like Google Gmail has probably 5 different product managers who help design and make sure the right things get built and it's making money and it has a lot of users, whatever. So 80K, when I was doing this, there's no one to teach me how to do it. What I'm offering people now didn't exist. So it took a lot of trial and error, but eventually I got another job, doubled the salary. So 160K. And then a few months later, I got another job at 150K. So adding all those together, I was earning 390 when I had previously earned 80. And that was just like really, really transformative for me because it allowed me to basically then pour that into what I wanted to do next. Like there's people on the internet who talk about job stacking, and some people, that's their thing. Like their end goal is for the next however long they possibly can, a decade, 2 decades, work multiple remote jobs. For me, I knew I wanted to help people. I knew I have a lot of creativity and it's best served doing what I'm doing now, like running a business, helping people do this. So I knew that's what I wanted to do, but I was able to invest. You know, when you're earning 30K per month pretty passively and you still have time, that was really transformational to be able to figure out, okay, this is just a means to an end. Let me reallocate now what I've earned from this into the thing I really want to be doing, essentially.
Interesting. So as I understood, some companies wouldn't like to have a person working for them and at the same time working in another job. So is this job stacking legal? And how actually right now there's AI and all that. How does AI as well play a role in this job stacking process?
Yeah, absolutely. So to answer your question, and everyone should go fact check this because laws could change. Your state or your city may have different laws than nationwide laws. But right now, as we're recording this, there's no nationwide law that says job stacking is illegal. So like federally, and I can't speak for any other countries outside the US, but at least in the US, there's no law that says working multiple jobs is illegal. However, you are likely violating your employment contract. So an employment contract will probably have some language in it that says you're not supposed to do anything that takes your time away from this company, which I want to say, like, a few things can be true, right? That can be true. And there's an argument for, okay, like if I were to violate that, there is some level of risk. And it's understanding what is that risk, right? So the risk, and this is how I break it down, and I don't want to encourage anyone to do it. You should absolutely understand your situation and the risks and rewards. So if you violate it, what could happen? There have been a few instances of something like serious happening to people, which is more of like a lawsuit or even like jail time, but those are only so far, like things could change, but so far those are only in the instances where they've done something really bad, like they were a government employee and they have access to very top secret information, and they were also job stacking, and they did something that was like very, very illegal for other reasons. So it wasn't
the main job.
Exactly. Yeah. And like another time where it could be more serious is if you worked for direct competitors where you're sharing trade secrets, right? If you worked for Google and Apple and you were sharing what you were learning at each one and they were direct competitors, your company might have, like, that's more of a serious thing that could lead to potential jail time or whatever. But like for the average person, if you were to work multiple jobs, traditionally, and this is not an absolute fact, but traditionally the worst thing that happens is, and this is at least 90% avoidable, if not 95+% avoidable, is one of the two companies finds out and they let you go, which then you're kind of back to square one. But again, because there's risks with all of it, right? There for sure is a risk that you're doing something that the company doesn't like and they might fire you. And at the same time, there's risk in I only have one income source, and what happens if I lose the one that I do have? And what's worse? So I can only speak to myself, but when I looked at this as like, okay, so if the worst thing that happens is I get fired, but I could get fired anyways, and like I'd rather get fired when I have two jobs and then still have one and go back to where I started than vice versa. So it's trade-offs. Like what I would never recommend anyone do is if you rely on, like a lot of people come to the US from other countries and they're on a visa program where they're only allowed to stay in the country because of their employment. And if they were to get caught working multiple jobs, they might get sent out of the United States. Like that changes the risk scenario a lot. And I would not encourage it for people. And then the one other caveat I would mention here, because it's like, okay, yeah, that's written in the contracts. But what I want people to think about is how many executives and senior leaders at these companies have their own other projects. So they run their own, like the amount of people who are executives at Facebook who run their own like consulting firms to like help people level up their careers, or they've also invested in other products, or they sit on the boards of other companies is more than 50%. So they're violating their own contracts that they've written. And if someone really took a fine-tooth comb to that language and wanted to enforce it, most people at most companies would be in violation of that. So, you know, it's very nuanced. Objectively, yeah, there is risk in it because it's not a straightforward thing. So it's for everyone, I would just encourage them to consider there is risk, but for you in your unique situation, would the pros outweigh the cons or not?
It means personal research is important as well before you do this, because let's say here in China, it's also like the laws are strict. And so once you belong to a certain company, you have to be there. And in China, they have like a policy, this kind of a trend or something that is 996. So meaning you have to work 9 hours. You come to work at 9, leave at 9, and 6 days a week. So it means you have to devote your life is like devoted to the company. And so probably I like the way that you just said it depends on your efficiency. It matters. You have to weigh it by yourself, the consequences, the efficiency that you will have in each job. And as well, you shouldn't trade secrets. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
You know, many young people listen to this podcast, and they're usually trying to find ways in which, you know, they can succeed in life, they can improve themselves, and so on. And you know, you made a turn from 390K at some point. You came from 80 to 390, and then you even decided to leave the 390, and now you're like teaching more people on how to, you know, do ethical job stacking and all that. So I'm curious to know, many people do not discover the turning point. They don't know when is the time to, you know, make the move, make the change. When was it? When did you discover that this was the right time? This is the right move, and this is the right time to make that move.
Great question. And are you asking specifically? Okay, I'm going to leave this really nice income at 390K to entrepreneurship. Is that the part of the journey you're asking about?
Yeah.
Got it. So it's tough. And I really love that question because those are really hard, scary decisions for anyone, right? It's scary to even leave an 80K job to go try entrepreneurship, or should I stay in my 80K job and try to find a different job? Like, career decisions are hard and scary most of the time because there's not a lot of opportunities. They come very few and far between. So there tends to feel like there's a lot of risk, and many strategies can work. So I will not pretend to have the only strategy. Some people are very big proponents of burn the boats, of just like leave your job and you'll sink or swim and figure it out. I personally never resonated with that. And I've always operated and had better success when I have more runway and I feel more relaxed. But I'm also a self-motivated person. So like, even if I'm earning 80K, or I have like, if I had a paycheck, I've never been someone that's been comfortable and just sitting back. Like, maybe people who don't have so much internal motivation need that external force to say, oh, I have no income, I need to go figure it out. But for me, the drawback to that is I don't like having to create from a place of fear and scarcity. Austin, it's almost a meme here in Austin of how many people come here to become coaches and entrepreneurs. Like, everyone I know is an entrepreneur or a coach, but 95%, and this was me for a while too, like have like no income. And it's just, it's hard. it's hard to be authentic and really give value if you're not sure how you're going to pay your rent this month. So I've always thrived from a place of how do I just create runway so I can pursue these goals, I can build this thing, but I don't feel a sense of pressure and I can do it the right way. Because like when I was launching this company, I didn't even quit all 3 jobs immediately. I let them go one by one over a period of maybe a year or so. Like at the very beginning, starting the company, having all that money to reinvest in the business was great. Eventually, and the question I'm always asking myself is just, it's really a gut feeling thing. I think everyone should just learn how to listen to their gut. The more self-aware you are, the more you know yourself, the more you know your skills and weaknesses, the better you'll be able to make decisions. And for me, it was just, okay, like once the business got to a point where I could tell the bottleneck was my time, because I'm also, as an entrepreneur, always thinking about what's the bottleneck right now in business. Is my bottleneck how many leads I'm getting? Is it our sales process? Is it trust in the marketplace? Like, what is our bottleneck? And for a while, bottleneck was money. So it's like, okay, just keep these jobs coming in, throw more and more money at our thing. Eventually it became my time. I was like, okay, I'm spending 20 hours a week on these jobs. I should probably take some of that time back so I can work on building our brand more. And eventually with the last job, I was pretty scared to let go of my last job because I was comfortable and I was like, we're already doing well. I was making more money in the business, but it was still fear. There was still fear and uncertainty. And I liked having at least 10K coming in a month that was guaranteed and pretty easy. But eventually my soul was just like, the ethical part was starting to slip. I was like, I don't care at all about this job. I hate this job. We're like doing such cool stuff with the business. And it was a gut feeling thing. And so short answer is trust your gut and you'll know what's the right time.
Interesting, because sometimes as young people, you discover, oh, I want to do this thing. And then immediately, maybe they want to, quit, burn all the boards, as you say. But it's more important to, evaluate your situation. And probably I think I resonate with you on the part that you say, slowly, you use these jobs that you have, you feed the endeavor, the startup that you're trying to create, a small company. And then eventually when you have discovered that, time is limited now. So it means you have to take some time off from these other 3 jobs, which means now you begin to let go. And so I resonate with that. And I think it's interesting that every young person should try to think in this way. Not necessarily that because you have a vision, you have a dream, and then it's like everything else comes to a halt. And today's podcast is mostly about how do we balance hustle, mental health, and faith at the same time. And I think you're a firm believer of you have faith, you have your mental health, you have taken care of your mental health, and at the same time you are putting in the work. And so, today in today's world, many achievers have struggle with burnout. And I wanted to ask this from the beginning: how do you run away from burnout and all that? But how do you personally actually maintain the alignment between ambition and your well-being? Because as an entrepreneur, you might be so much motivated to do what you want to do and you forget about yourself, you forget about your loved ones, your surrounding and all that. So how do you maintain that? And what's maybe the one practice that you can let the listeners practice this week?
That's a great question. And this is my favorite stuff to talk about. Before I started doing career coaching and very tangible, like results income coaching, I really had this chapter of life where I wanted to be the next Tony Robbins and the next high performance coach person, because it's been transformational for me. And I really struggled with mental health for a long time. And I know I would not be where I am today if I didn't really figure out these things. And they're hard for everyone. They're hard for corporate professionals. They're hard for entrepreneurs. And it's still, I've been practicing these things for at least 6-7 years, and I still find myself in those cycles. And I don't know that you can actually eliminate burnout, but in my objective has always been, how do you shorten the cycle of burnout, right? Like, how do you notice the signs faster, and how do you reset faster? And I'll actually start with the number one practice that I think is helpful for people, or at least has been helpful for me. And it's having some sort of self-reflection practice daily. So I don't think you can prevent burnout or find that balance if you're not checking in and understanding where you're at personally. So I really get value out of journaling every morning. Sometimes it's literally 5 minutes, but I always start with something to the effect of what's alive for me today. Like, how do I feel today? What's going on? What's my state? And I'll just put pen to paper, and maybe I feel anxious. Maybe I feel relaxed. Maybe I feel motivated, excited, tired. And then I just keep going, and I say, okay, why? Like, and maybe I'll ask the question of just kind of doing an audit of my life. Like, how do I feel across the board? How are my relationships? How's my business doing? How am I having fun? Like, what's missing from my life? Just figuring out what questions really help you probe and get to the bottom, because it can be so easy. And I'm learning this more and more as our business grows and grows. I'm facing challenges I've never faced before, where it used to be pretty easy for me to keep my health and all those things in check. And now that I have more responsibility, it's easier to be pulled back into the day-to-day, grind and being reactive. And I think setting boundaries is very important as well. So for we're all going to be busy, but like, what are the gaps? Identifying those things that if I'm able, and this will take time, right? Like, you don't know these things off the bat, but by just carving out time to take care of your body, at least an hour or two a day, you'll find what practices work best for you. I love yoga. I like going for walks without headphones. A couple dates with my girlfriend every week that are just very relaxed usually. Going to church on Sundays, just scheduling things into my week that I know will reset my baseline at least a little bit. And it's not perfect. Like, I just went on my first mini vacation of the year to Mexico for 3 days, and I feel so good coming back. And it's just a mental reminder of every couple of months, just leave and go somewhere. Because if you like to work hard like I do, my weekends, even on the weekends, I'm working at least 2 or 3 hours every day. So it's really easy to create mental patterns that are just so deeply entrenched. So I think changing your environment, doing things that kind of reset your neural pathways can be very helpful, because you can come back to your situation with fresh eyes, and you can accomplish more in one day than you can in 2 weeks if you just get a little bit of refresh. So yeah, I think those are some of the best things you can do, but it's just figure out what works for you and really protect that time. So another thing for me that is helpful is sometime in the morning, that's for me, and having a hard cutoff time at the end of the workday works well for me. There's a lot of people, very successful people, that don't do that. So I think it's also knowing your personality type and knowing what works for you. But for me, I'll get up as early as I need to start my workday and get a lot done. But come literally 5, latest 6 p.m., I'm off the phone. I'm doing those things that help me rejuvenate.
Interesting. With the rise of social media, people tend to copy and paste and decide to try new routines that doesn't really work with them on the long run. And at the same time, apart from being burnout with work, you become burnout with trying a routine. Let's say a person says online, wake up at 5, do this, do that, while you could sleep until 6, 7 and still be effective. Because I remember I listened to one guy, and he was talking about how his 24 hours is not the same as, he has characterized his 24 hours in throughout his day. He can finish a 7 days week within 1 day, because his 24 hours means effective working, and he can split the day into many 24 hours. Because what's 24 hours is just about the impact, the outcome that you're supposed to fulfill within the 24 hours. So you discover something that works with you. It means I can wake up at 8 and still be able to finish the work that was supposed to be finished from 8 to 6, and finish it even before 11, and that's effective. So I like the way that you're showing that, and I like the aspect that you mentioned about faith, church and all that, finding things that rejuvenate you, being in a space that allows you to relive the moment, the traveling and all that. And the other thing is your team has been helping, apart from you having good times and all that, but your team has helped over 100,000 people apply for jobs and all that. And I'm curious to know what are the biggest mistakes, because someone listening and is about to graduate or something. What are the biggest mistakes that people make in their job search? And again, I like saying AI because it's something that we cannot escape, right? And
Yeah.
how does actually AI or something like automation, how does it help in this process?
Question. So I'll give you 4 things that I think are really important for everyone to understand. And you hit the nail on the head. Like for us, when we started, I just happened to find a process that worked. There are many processes that can work. I found one that worked. And then the next thing was, can this be repeatable for people in any field of work? And that's been our goal. And we've achieved that. So this is an approach that can work, that does work, and 4 main things. So the first thing is, and you really won't hear many people talking about this, is what job title are you targeting? And the reason this matters is we get so many people who come to us who have fantastic, like, let alone being a new graduate, there are people who have decades of work experience doing really impressive things that can't even get an interview. And it's because the job market has changed so drastically, because it used to be 100 people would apply to a job. The recruiter would manually look at all the resumes. They'd read the resumes. They'd pick the people they want to interview. Now, because there is automation, there's AI, 500 people apply to every job in the market. Like, most people fail because the human doesn't even end up seeing the resume. They don't even know they exist, right? So if we pretend like it's Google search results, there are 30 pages of applicants. If you haven't optimized your SEO, you're going to be on page 30 instead of page 1 or 2. And it's just the same. It's the same deal, that the recruiter's only going to look at the first 3 pages, pick the 10 people they want to interview, because they're going to get overwhelmed. So the thing we solve for, we optimize for this, and everything just happens downstream as a result, is how do we get you on page 1, 2, or 3 in the LinkedIn or the Indeed or ZipRecruiter, whatever job search board you're on, in the top few pages of results. And really, all the first 3 of these pillars are all interconnected to this idea, but it's, in a nutshell, the way these softwares work is they compare the job posting with your resume, and the AI goes, are a lot of the words the same? Okay, if a lot of the words are the same in both of these documents, they're probably a good likelihood of fit. So and what we found is the number one determinant is, and it's like, how do you know what words need to be in your resume? Well, you need to know what job title you're going after. So, like, let's just say I want to do marketing. I would go do some research. If I filter on LinkedIn, what are the top fields, like, and the exact job title, right? So if I want to do something in marketing, I would figure out what are all the top job titles in marketing, and I would see how many jobs have been posted in the last 30 days for each of those, right? So this is a huge mistake that people make, where they assume the job is called marketing specialist, so they optimize for that. But there might be, like, literally, it's probably this drastic. There are probably 100 marketing specialist jobs posted monthly, but 900 to 2,000 marketing manager jobs posted monthly. And why this matters is you have to be so perfect in your keyword matching that if you optimize your resume for specialists, but then apply to the marketing manager jobs, you're not going to be a good fit, and you're not going to be on page 1 or 2. So we want to find the big pools of work. So, like, marketing manager is a great example. It's a big field. There are a lot of those jobs. You can play the numbers game, and we start there. So it's, what's the right job title? Once you have the job title, it's resume and LinkedIn optimization. And this is a deep rabbit hole, but it's essentially, what are all the keywords I need to have on both my resume and my LinkedIn so that the robot thinks I'm a good fit? So we've identified marketing manager. One way you can do this is basically clicking through a bunch of different job postings on LinkedIn that resonate with you and pulling out the keywords in those postings and making sure they're somewhere in your resume. That's really important. And then there's plenty of other resume tips that are important in there. It's not just about keywords. It's about coming across as someone who will convey value. The top 2 ways to do that is quantification. And really good quantification, which is the impact you're making. And the easiest way to think about that is dollar value. No one cares that you sent 5,000 emails. They care about how much revenue you generated this quarter through email marketing. So it's that kind of difference. If you can do that, and also just how you write. Too many people are using AI to write their resumes. So there's a time and a place to use AI. It's not to just, like, throw up a resume onto a piece of paper, because it will be so, if you don't know how to tweak it, it will sound like an AI wrote it, and that will get you auto disqualified essentially. So using really simple language is one of the easiest ways to avoid that. Like, using words like spearheaded used to make you sound smart, and now they make you sound like ChatGPT wrote it for you. So it's like, use really simple language, but use very good quantification is what I tell people on resumes. And then LinkedIn, basically same deal. tons of things you want to do here. Make it look professional. Use keywords in your headline. When you write your biography or your about section and then your job descriptions, the best part about LinkedIn is that there's no limit or there's a very long limit on how much words and how much language you can put in there, whereas a resume should be 1 page. So on LinkedIn, you want to write as much as you possibly can, because the more you have in there, the more keywords and buzzwords, the more likelihood the algorithm is to think you're a good candidate. So those are the first 3 pillars: job title, from the job title, resume and LinkedIn dialed so that the robots consider you a good fit. And the last is volume of applications, which feeds back into how big is that pool of jobs, because you could have the most perfect resume, you could show up on page 1 or 2, but even when you do that, a good response rate is 1 interview for every 100 jobs you apply to. And that's that's depressing. It really is, but it's actually true, because 500 people apply to those jobs. So the companies are going to pick only the people who are literal perfect fits. So even if you do all those things I just mentioned, you need to figure out how to play the volume game to get consistent interviews. It's not enough to just have all those things dialed, because now you have to actually create the number of interviews. So, and even if you say like, okay, there's no way it's that bad, I'll get at least 5 or 10% response rate from interviews. Great. We might as well set the bar as low as possible so you over deliver on your goals, right? So if you just assume I'll get 1 interview for every 100 jobs I apply to, okay, how do I apply to 1,000 jobs this month? Like, what can I do to make that a reality? What can I do to make that a possibility? And there's tiers on how you can do this. Our program that we offer does done for you. So we hire people, and you can do this for yourself too. There's just, things you just need to make sure you don't mess up in the process. We hire people from the Philippines at a very affordable hourly rate, and we assign them to our clients, and then we train them on a tool that we have internally that automates the job application process. So this person is applying to jobs on LinkedIn, long form and easy apply, but then also using an automation tool that is basically a robot that can run the job search. And that's how we're personally able to do 2,000 applications a month. You don't need to go that route. That's like as extreme as you can get. But if you do that and you take the 1% rule, then you're getting 20 interviews a month on autopilot. And you're not even doing it. They're just landing in your inbox. So that's like the far end. But if your resources are very limited, I don't want to scare you by thinking I have to get out 2,000, but let's start with how do you even get out 100 a week? Like what would need to happen to do that? So it's how do I get even more efficient with my applying time? There are some plugins called, one of them is called Simplify, I believe, that basically it's one of those like auto population things. You ever like save your credit card on Google Chrome and it auto populates it? It's basically that for job applications, where you open up the application form and it'll just dump the stuff into the form and you don't have to spend the time. So it shortens the time, right? So you don't necessarily need an assistant. You don't need AI tools. But just really think about how do I get out more and more volume? Because every day there are new headlines saying the job market is screwed. And even if that were true, I don't believe it's true. It's not going to be an empowering mindset to help you get a job. So just always think about what is in my control and how do I just focus on the leading indicators. So get the volume out, make your experience more impressive. Those are some of my top tips.
Interesting. Write the correct title and then polish your resume, and then quantification. What value are you bringing into the company? Because it's measured in terms of quantity. Nobody cares about how many emails you have sent, but rather the dollars that came in. And finally is help me out.
Volume.
Yeah.
The volume.
Yeah, volume. 300 applications, probably 3 of them you'll be called to an interview or something. Yep.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I do actually want to add one more, because you mentioned some of your audience are people just graduating and maybe don't have a lot of experience. So one other thing I like to tell people is certifications are basically useless. So if you have free time and resources, certifications, they're not going to hurt you, but they're not going to be the reason you get a job or the reason someone is excited to talk to you, unless you went to some like incredible university, maybe. What I definitely would encourage is, and the reason being, it conveys you understand a skill, but it doesn't convey that you can do the job. And they want the person that they know can do the job. So the way to communicate you can do the job if you've never had the job is go do a real project for a real company, but don't ask for any money. So literally just go pick a company that is at least mildly notable. So like Nike or whatever. Nike is a fine example. Like, let's say I wanted to get a software development job. I would pick Nike. I would go build a mock-up website or a section of a website or what I think is a new checkout flow that would increase their conversion rate on checkout. And I would publish it, and I would go add 30 people from Nike on LinkedIn, and I would share the project with them and say, hey, I did this thing. I'm highly confident it will increase your conversion rate. I'd love to share it with you. They may or may not even accept a meeting with you. If they do, that's great. And you can show it to them and pitch it to them. And they may keep it, they may not. Who knows what happens? But that's enough for you to put it on your resume and to say, I did I built a optimized checkout for Nike, right? Like, so little things like that is what I always encourage people if they want to boost up their experience without having it technically from a real job.
Practice. Showcase your expertise, yeah?
Yes,
do the real
absolutely.
work. Do the real work. Because sometimes you graduate and people, companies are asking, the job needs person with the 7 years experience while you just graduated. And the only way to showcase the experience is, the practicals, the things that you do. I like the way that you perfectly mentioned it's projects. Just invest into projects and don't expect like they should pay you back and all that. Yeah. Now, thank you very much because Delaney, today I'm actually, understanding the dynamics of the job market, and thanks to you for explaining and introducing the concept of job stacking. And I hope the listener also got something, and the listener is enjoying the episode and is understanding what is ethical job stacking from Delaney Maguire. On social media, Delaney Williams. Yeah,
Exactly.
now
You got it.
you see, I eventually I got it. Now, as we conclude the podcast, because it's not forever, but someone who is listening, right? They have been listening all this while, and now they are interested into starting the job stacking process, or they just want to leverage, technology, automation, and all that to increase their income. But at the same time, they are feeling, it's too much. It's too much weight because they have to think about their 9 to 5 job. I mean, that's the Western style, but here, let's say it's 9 to 9 job, and they have to make choices. They have to overweigh this, and it's like, it's like, they just want to give up. So what's the first step they should take this week to get started? This is like the golden nugget that someone who has listened to this point, now they can start this week.
Great question. Yeah. I mean, the best way to not feel overwhelmed is to create a good plan. So this is not some like super sexy tip for anyone, but it's very high leverage. And if you do this, it will work for you because it can feel overwhelming to try to, I need to stack jobs like that as one entity of an outcome. And having an ambiguous plan on how to do it will make you feel overwhelmed. But just break it into steps and say, and you can expand it out until it no longer scares you, right? So like, how do I double my income by the end of the year? For most people, it's actually not going to be that hard, right? So if you just go back and re-listen to this episode and hear everything I said in terms of what the steps are, it's doable, right? It might be, and what are the milestones? So it's like, okay, let me give myself 3 months to make my portfolio good enough that I actually will be competitive. Or let me spend this first month getting clear on what job title I want to go after so I know what projects I need to do to make myself more competitive. And if you give yourself 3 months, it's like, okay, do 3 big projects over the next 3 months and put them on your portfolio. So the number one thing you can do is just have a very actionable plan on how do I achieve that? Because if you can figure out how to make it work in your schedule and you carve out the time and you're not worried about the big picture, you're just putting one foot in front of the other, right? If you want to lose 200 pounds, really all you need to do is work out 30 minutes a day and track your food, right? So like less than an hour a day can get you that outcome if you stop being scared about the timeline. So that's what I would encourage the person to do is just map out what the steps are to make it a reality and just start baby steps. And we have cool AI that if you just don't know what to do next, ask the AI. Just like word vomit. Hey, this is exactly where I am. This is how I feel. What's the next step to get to X outcome? And it can be pretty helpful most of the time.
Thanks very much, Delaney. Thank you very much for sharing awesome things to someone who's listening, who's worried about which job. How come my income is not enough and they want to try the entrepreneurship? Hey, you have made it to almost the end. Sorry, the network just decided that it's going to sacrifice without the host, without the guest saying goodbyes. But if you want to connect with Delaney William, just go to Instagram at Delaney William _ That's his Instagram. And as well, it's more better if you want to start your journey through job searching, you want to just have a quick consultation, you just want to see a quick demo on how their projects work, their tool work, just go to elevatedtech.us, elevatedtech.us, and you can book a call. You can learn more about Delaney and Elevate Tech and understand more. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast, and if you are new to the podcast, remember to subscribe, please. Remember to just click the button, and I really love your honest feedback, so be sure to leave a comment on this, leave a comment or write to me on Instagram at EboDaily. And remember, this podcast episode was brought to you by OC Outdoor Products Company Limited. So you can learn more about OC and the associated products and services at www.ocgroup.com. I hope to see you in the next episode. Take care. Ciao. Bye.